So my book Real Growth is finally out. The culmination of over 200 podcasts with some of the leaders in the industry. It's taken me about 2 years to pull it together. So it is available now. It's on Amazon, so check out the link in my bio and please let me know how you get on with it. It's all designed to really help people through 3 sections of growth, mindset and business. So check it out, let me know what you think.
Hi, my name is Dr. Marwan Al-Dawood. I'm a sports doctor in Yorkshire and I'm going to be talking to you about life as a sports doc.
Thank you, Marwan, and thank you for welcoming me to your home. Now, I commonly describe you as the most talented man in sports medicine. So we're at one of your many places of peace, I would say, at the piano.
Yeah.
So how long have you been playing the piano for?
I started when I was about 7, 8, something like that, and then played it for quite a few years. And as I became a teenager, it wasn't very cool to play this, and I picked up the guitar instead. So then I played that for years, and then when I was in my early 20s, grew up a little bit, and then I thought to get back into it. So, and I've been playing since then, really. Yeah, so I've been through like the grades, and although now I just like to, whenever I finish a day's work and it helps me unwind, especially when I've got some quiet time, just play some music and get into my space. But it's not all just piano. I like playing guitar as well, and I like making music. I'm in a sort of band at the moment. I've been in and out of bands over years, but at the moment we're actually recording some music that I've written over the years, which is fun. Yeah, it's great. It's a creative outlet for me. I'm very creative, and it definitely helps me, yeah, kind of channel that energy.
Yeah, would you like to play us something?
So, right, go try and guess what song this is from. This is actually a proper piece. Yeah. Oh, you've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah.
Any ideas? What film?
Who is it?
It's This Is England.
Okay, right. Yeah, great movie.
What's it called? That really good actor. He was in.
It's
He's in Snatch, and he was in that recent Adolescence.
Yeah, the Scouse bloke. Can't think of his name now, but that's the Shane Meadows movie, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's. But I do like Einaudi, and I saw you in the line, didn't I? We went to go watch him in Manchester.
That was epic.
Yeah.
That was. Can you play? It's Una Mattina, isn't it?
Una Mattina, yeah, I can play Una Mattina. Nice. Let's see. Here we go. keep going. I could keep
Very
going.
good. No, it's brilliant.
Goes on for a while. I
think
love that
that's
song.
an amazing tune, that, isn't it? That whole concept was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But you can see you get really into it when you're playing it. And does it give you that escape from life? Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's quite difficult to, when you're being recorded, it's difficult to really get into it. When I'm on my own, I can really get immersed in like the music. And yeah, when you're playing, like when you're really playing, nothing else really matters. You really get in a zone where you're feeling the music. I think that's where, that's the difference between just performing a track versus really feeling a track. I mean, there's songs that I've written which I feel, which are great, and things. Playing someone else's music is also powerful. But yeah, when you write your own stuff, you get a lot more. But playing any kind of song, you can really get into it, and I do like that feeling. It's like it's akin to like meditation. You can, as I say, not that I'm some expert pianist. I'm by far like a professional pianist, but I can play, and I think once you get past the playing the notes and actually working out what you're doing, and you can play it automatically, then you can get into like almost like a meditative state. And it doesn't have to be piano; it could be anything you do. But I think, if you can get into that zone where you can zone out your phone or what's happening outside or other things that go on in your mind, I think that's a great place to be. And that's part of the reason why I love music so much.
Yeah, no, it's great. Brilliant. Right, we're moving on to the next part. I'm going to keep the camera running just to show the flow of it as well.
Well, why don't we go out this way?
I think, in Audi's stuff, like, I mean, didn't you had some interaction with him, didn't you, for when you actually reached out to him at one point?
I did. So, I got to know about his music when I was 18, and at that point, I mean, that was, I don't know, 2001 or something like that. It's a long time ago, and at that point, no one really heard of him. And I remember hearing the song like Leond, which is like one of the ones that made him really famous. And I sent him an email. So I was writing music at the time, and I sent him an email on Yahoo email, and he replied. And I basically said, "I'm writing this song. Can you listen to it and see what you think? And can you make some changes to it?" And like he replied to my email in like broken English, and he was like, "I think it sounds perfect just the way it is." I mean, that probably is a very polite way of saying I'm not interested. But that's when I kind of interacted with him, and then I saw him for the first time live at the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester. Again, that was in the 2000s, and again, he wasn't that famous. And I met him, and he sounded like something like whatever I had. And then since then, I've probably seen him live maybe like 4 or 5 times. Obviously, every time he brings out a new album, he does a tour and things. But yeah, he's interesting because I think what he's done when he first came out, and even now, a lot of classical musicians or classically trained pianists, certainly at the beginning, really like ridiculed him because his music is actually very straightforward in terms of, if you compare that to like Beethoven, the composition is very simple. The bass notes are simple, but he does it all beautifully, and he's really skilled at making beautiful music. And I think, the classical people didn't like him to begin with, but the mainstream people loved him, and all his stuff is over. It's adverts, it's on films, it's everything else. But as a musician, I love playing his stuff. It's very emotive, and I think he's got a real gift.
Yeah, no, I think he's amazing. Like, there's so many tunes that are just, I'm a very mainstream person, so I love it all. So anyway, we are now in, where are we here?
This is like my chicken and bee section of my garden. So I'm quite proud that I actually built all of this fence and everything. It looks pretty straightforward, but I built it all, and getting these into the ground is pretty hard work. I've got a massive mallet, and I'm even proud that, I mean, it's not going to work now because it's just not going to do it, but this gate that basically self-closes, which is...
does when you push it.
It does when you... If you do it wide enough, it should just self-close. There you go. And then I'm actually quite proud. I've installed like a little spring thing. So yeah, basically, this is where the chickens live, and I did this started this about 4 years ago. It started off just as the coop at the back, and then just a little chicken run, but I've expanded it since. And Yeah, I can't imagine going back now to buying like shop bought eggs, because now, you know, I've got 4 chickens at the moment, and each of them gives me roughly an egg a day. So, you know, you get a lot of eggs after a while, and you know, when they're fresh, you know, they're living their best life. You know, they eat a lot of organic stuff. So if I've chopped some lettuce or veg, I'll give them the scraps and they love it. So I don't actually, none of my organic waste goes to landfill. It's all like either given to the chickens, or I've got a composter there. See in the background between the trees there, that black thing. That's a composter. So I put my grass clippings in there, I put all my food waste in there, or over here, that little box there, that's called a wormery. So there's different layers and there's loads of worms in there. You give them your organic waste, they will chew it through, and then at the bottom of there, there's a little tap, and that is kind of natural fertilizer. So that's fertilizer I use for the crops and everything else. And then my compost comes at the bottom of that composter, and the chickens eat the rest. So none of my food waste goes to landfill, because even though you separate stuff out, you don't know really what happens to it. So yeah, it's all kind of kept in-house, and it means that I get fresh compost again. I don't have to go and buy like a big bag of compost. I just take it from the bottom, and I've got like a continued supply of compost. That's how I live. And then if you come this way,
where's the 4th chicken, by the way?
she's hidden. She's new, so she will be somewhere, but she'll be a bit shy, really. I don't know where she is. She's not there. She'll be here somewhere. But if we have a look at the back of here, I'll open it up and see what we've got from today. So that's 3 eggs, freshly laid today.
How many eggs do you tend to get?
About between 3 and 4 a day.
So is that one? I guess that's one per.
One per chicken. Yeah. What I'm going to start doing actually as well is I've bought an incubator for fertilised eggs, so you actually hatch your own chicks.
Wow.
And I'm doing that for the kids. So like, you know, it's quite a cool thing to do, isn't it? You grow a chicken, hatches, and you've got a little chick there. And when it's ready, introduce it here. But behind me here, this is my beehive. So I got into beekeeping just over a year ago, and it came about because just across the way there's a livery in the fields there, and I was asking her about somewhere that I could get local honey, because at the time I thought, I knew that the stuff you buy in the shop isn't particularly good for you. I didn't really know the extent of it at the time. And I was looking for a local beekeeper. She put me in touch with somebody. He then one day said, why don't you come round and I'll get you kitted up in your bee suit and you can have a look at it all. And I went, and I was just like fascinated by the whole thing and decided to get my own beehive. And then, yeah, I basically since then just been learning on this journey of like what bees do and how good they are, the honey, when you get real honey as opposed to stuff in the shop, how good it is for you, and just learning about how they work and what they do. But if you look in here, I've got this is called a flow hive. So real beekeepers don't get that. This is like this is an Australian brand company, and what makes it different from normal hives is that when you come to harvest your honey, got an irritable bee, when you come to harvest your honey, you normally have to take everything apart, and it's a full day process, whereas with this, all you do is these are called the flow frames, and essentially you attach a tube on there, and there's a shelf that comes here, and you can drain your honey straight into your jars ready for eating. So if you can see here, I've drained that one last week. I've got here 4 ones that are ready to harvest, and this one will be ready soon enough. So it makes the extraction process much easier, and that's why I got this one.
And then what's your plans to do with the honey?
I'm going to sell it. So I got about 8-9 jars last week, which I'm going to have for me and my family. But then, if everything goes well, I should get, I don't know, between 30 and 50 jars of honey. And yeah, that's enough for me. I don't need that much, so I'll start selling it. I've made a little Instagram page for my bee page and whatever. And the plan is to start selling it. But yeah, we should probably leave them to it.
Yeah, they're getting a bit active though.
You do get a bit. So the thing is that what I've noticed is that now they've got loads of honey, they're a bit more protective over it because they've got more to lose. You know, they see us as just like predators coming in to just steal their stuff, which is basically what we are. Yeah, over here I've got my vegetable patches that I've just built these a few years ago, and I've got kind of fresh onion here, one of the cool things is like the kids, they come back from like school and they'll just pick off a bit of onion, or we've got in here, we've got some beetroot, and then rocket is in here. So if I get you, that's a big rocket leaf. Try that, it's fresh, big piece of rocket, but it's fresh rocket. You know, so you can, just a healthy living, basically.
Nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Over here I've got some cauliflower growing. This is cauliflower. This is cabbage. Got some broad beans growing here. Some blueberries back here. So these are almost ready. You can see they start off green, but they're turning purple now. So next few weeks, if it's good sun, they'll give me some stuff. And then we've got some small peas here. So again, these have never made it inside. So you basically open it up, and then it's windy, and you got fresh. Try them. Straight from there.
Very nice, actually, aren't they?
Delicious.
Like sort of sweet, aren't they?
Really sweet. Yeah. I've been growing peas for years, and they've never made it inside the house. They always just get eaten. It's so delicious. Yeah. What I'll do, like the skin here, I'll just give it to the chickens, and they love it. Here she is. That's the fourth one. So yeah, you can basically, they love all this stuff. That's just some of the rocket. They fight over it. They love it. So yeah, they get a good diet.
So like for your time then, you're a busy person with what you do at work, you've got 2 kids and stuff, like how do you build in time to do this? How time consuming is it to spend time doing this?
I think, you know, when you look at where you spend your time, you know, how much time you spend on your phone scrolling. You know, people, it's one of those shocking statistics, isn't it? If you look at on your phone, your usage, you spend like 3 hours scrolling. You could spend half an hour doing something like this. It doesn't take, I mean, I don't see it as a massive amount of time. Planting this stuff here was like an hour job. It was like tough. And then the bees takes me, it's about half an hour once a week, where I get dressed up in where my son says a hazmat suit. And then I go in and check them. And yeah, I mean, it's about where you apportion your time to. I also get the kids involved in it a lot. So when we came to harvest last week, the kids were there passing me jars and tasting the honey, and it's not only great memories for them, but it's also gets them part of the process. So they, rather than thinking, well, how do you do it with kids? Because they need entertaining, and how am I going to have time to do it when they need their own stuff? But actually, if you get them involved in it, then they're part of that process. And I think in this day and age when, you know, I don't know if you've seen Toy Story 5 yet.
Not yet.
You haven't got kids, but it's quite a cool story actually. It's basically where the toys are a threat because all kids have got devices now, and then it just shows how kids now are just hooked to their iPads and whatever. So in a day and age where you're competing with like tech and screen time, coming to this kind of stuff just brings kids back to more their like natural state, and which is good for their brain development and everything. So even when it comes to harvesting, I'll get the kids involved. So last year when the onions were ready, they helped me pull them out, then they helped me wash them and prepare them and things like that. And I usually grow potatoes. That's another good one, because you grow them in these big grow bags, which I've got, and then when you come to harvest them, you basically tip out the grow bags, and it's got loads of soil, and in amongst the potatoes it's like little golden nuggets, and the kids can help find them. And so there's ways in which you can integrate it into your life that it doesn't have to be like me time. Probably the exception is the bees, in that I do that on my own because I don't want the kids to get stung when I'm actually inspecting them. But I could, and people do, I could get the kids like bee suits, and they could come in with it, and they would be protected, and they would learn all about that stuff. So there's ways in which I think you can just apportion your time. So yeah, there is time in there. It just depends on where you apportion your time to. And it is easy, to, you know, when you've been at work all day and you're busy, come back and you want to just lie down. And don't get me wrong, I do that a lot. You know, I do want to just vegetate, you know, after work when it's been a hard day. But also, particularly when it's like summertime, it's good weather, it's nice to just get out, even if it's for 15 minutes, half an hour. So I like all that stuff, and it gives me, just like the piano gives me that space where I can be away from tech and everything else. This stuff does as well, and you get the added benefits from this, that it's physically good for you as well. Not only is the moving and that kind of side of things good. It's the fresh air, it's a mental aspect to it, but then you're also getting really healthy, natural food. My eggs. These eggs, these chickens haven't been given, they're not pumped full of antibiotics, which the commercial chickens are. They're not kept in like cages, which is going to affect their health. These are free, happy chickens, and the eggs that I'm going to get are natural eggs. So even from a health point of view, I'm a big believer in what you put in your body is massively important, and so you're getting those health benefits from it as well.
So what's happening in the world of sports medicine currently?
For me personally, I'm balancing private and NHS work. That's probably for me. I've traditionally, most of my work has been in the NHS, which I believe in, and I still do. The bulk of my work is working in the NHS, serving the public. But I'm balancing that with doing my own thing. So I've been more active on social media and just creating a bit of a brand. That's for me personally, and that's all going well. I think that the people are receptive to it. Things seem to be going well. And it's I've probably got to that point where I offer a lot of services, and particularly in the NHS, one of the things I'm a big believer on is trying to bring the best possible, whether it's tech or techniques or equipment or practices or pathways to the general public. So over the past few years, I've done a lot of work in that space to try and bring better care in the community for NHS patients. So for example, even just the whole thing of like diagnostic ultrasound and integrating that into community musculoskeletal services. 10 years ago, no one was really doing any of this type of stuff. So that I've been quite big in that space, and obviously, part of that has been working with you guys and PhysiQuip. The other thing is doing a lot of interventions in the community. So things where we traditionally need a referral to a hospital, whether that's a patient suffering from a frozen shoulder, something like a hydrodistension, is a procedure that didn't even really exist 15 years ago. I started doing that, I think in 2015 when I started doing that, and I brought it to the, all the places I work in the NHS. And it's interesting because one of the shoulder surgeons at the trust where I work, I was his registrar like 15 years ago, and I met with him the other day, and he was like, we don't see frozen shoulder patients anymore because you guys are doing all this stuff in the community, and it's keeping patients, out of hospitals, which is the whole point of it. So things like that. There's other things that I've been doing. We're in the process of doing this whole incisionless carpal tunnel stuff. The guys from like Spirecut and things, been looking to start a pathway, like a pilot project in the NHS, again, to help patients who are struggling with these symptoms, these problems, which there are new technology advances that can help these things be done and keep people out of hospitals and get them seen quicker and get them just as good, if not better, outcomes. So that's another thing I've been working on, and as well as kind of some of the more exciting things in terms of innovation, whether that's dynamic ultrasound in soft tissue problems. That's an area where, over the past year or so, it's a very unknown area. So I've been very, very experimental, finding out about this space, and those people who follow me will know I've been quite vocal about some of this stuff. I've presented it at various conferences, in the big sports med conferences in the world. So that's another area where I feel like there's a lot of potential. It's exciting, and for me personally, it excites me. So that's an area where I think I'm at a point in my career where I want to do things that I think are useful but also exciting, and I think that ticks those kind of boxes.
Now, how do you prioritise your time? You've already mentioned about 5 different things that you're kind of working on alongside of having a family, looking after yourself personally. So how do you prioritise your clinical workload with these new innovative things that are interesting, but also you need to make them work commercially for yourself?
I think that's something that I'm probably learning. I think I'm, as we speak, recovering from my 3rd microdiscectomy, and I've been quite open about it. And that's a sign for me that what I'm doing probably isn't achieving that balance, because I'm the type of person who I like to do things. I like to be active. I can't just sit down and not do anything. So I probably need to learn better in terms of how to prioritise my time. But at the same time, I think there's you'll know there's a book. What is it? Is it 1,000 or 127? I don't know. I'm probably making this up. There's a book title of it is the number of hours you have on the average lifespan.
Right.
And you must have heard.
I've actually not done that one, but I'm familiar with it, but I've not read it.
I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
I'm making up the number, but whatever the number it might be, how number of hours, and each hour or days or whatever it might be in your life, you've once that day's finished, you're never going to get back that day. And I do think that there'll be times in your life when there are times for winding down and there are times for being active. And I think if you've got the health and the opportunity, why not do the things that you can do? And I think there's a balance between being active but not being like an overachiever type of thing. I think there's a delicate balance between we know that things like burnout are massive in our specialty, in our field. People, if you do too much, there's only so much you can cope with. And it's partly probably the reason why I'm really into a lot of these other things we've talked about, whether it's nature or music and things, because they give that contrast of balance to my life. Whereas I think if I didn't have those, I think it'd be probably quite stressful. So for me, that's the balance that I've got. I think I'm working on it and learning what works for me. And I think my back is a timely reminder that you're human at the end of the day, and we've all got pinch points, and sometimes your body will tell you if it's not happy with things. So that's something I'm learning about myself. But also, I think from a point of view of nature, diet, exercise, these are huge things that I think as a society we've just got wrong. I think too many of us are sat at home in front of TV, not eating very well, not exercising. Obesity is a massive problem, and all the chronic diseases that come as a result, and not just related to obesity, alcohol, other things that cause people health problems over the years. I think these are big things that I think we could remedy better, rather than just looking at what medicine we can do. We should look at why they're happening in the first place. The classic example for that analogy, actually, I always talk about is your person who develops indigestion, so antacid reflux, whatever it is, the cause of it, but basically develops heartburn, indigestion, goes to their GP and is prescribed a PPI or an antacid tablet. Now, medically, that will stop the acid and make them feel better. But why are they getting the acid in the first place? Are they stressed? Are they smashing coffees every 5 minutes? Are they drinking loads of alcohol, smoking, eating loads of spicy food? All the things that we know that can cause it. And some of those things are unhealthy. So I think medicine has become it's just getting better and better at treating people, but we're still missing the elephant in the room in some of these cases, which is, why has this happened? And I think from an MSK point of view, when patients present with joint pain or soft tissue problems, I think there's also that element of, why is this happening? And let's address that, rather than all the fancy things we can do to help your pain. Those have definitely got a place, and that's my whole field. Sports medicine, our role is massively in that end, isn't it, of intervention and medicalised stuff. But ultimately, it would be great if I didn't have a role to play, because people were so good at looking after their own health. So I think that's a big space, which, there's lots of different things and different schemes. Moving medicine is probably the biggest one that the Faculty of Sports Med have been championing for years now as a project to kind of get people more active and things. But I always think there's more, and I think even just outside of healthcare, as a society, we're a very privileged position in that, we're in the top percentile of the world, aren't we, really, in terms of all the basic amenities are met. We've got safety, in terms of, infrastructure, we've got security, we've got food in abundance, we've got more food than we can think of. We've not really need anything. We've got everything we need, but I don't think we really appreciate it. And I think there's a Jimmy Carr's got a quote, which I'm not a huge fan of Jimmy Carr, but he's got a quote which I think really resonates, which is that we're at the point of life in the existence of the human race where we've got the most we've ever had, yet so objectively we're at the greatest wealth, but subjectively we've never felt as bad. The rise, the rate of mental health and people feeling unhappy with their situation has never really been higher, whereas objectively we've never been in a stronger position as humanity, certainly in the West anyway. So there's something in there, and I think for me, getting back to nature and basics, and getting your feet on grass and just getting in and breathing natural air and eating healthy foods, for me that's a massive part of what I think we're missing.
Yeah, no, I think I know that Jimmy Carr, and I'm not a massive fan, I don't actually think he's particularly funny, but I've seen him interviewed on Stephen Bartlett where he was talking about, I think he was mentioning in that quote around about the fact we've got a warm shower, and like,
Yes.
a few, not many years ago, that would have been absolute witchcraft that you had something like this. So I think it's really interesting, that basic stuff, but I agree, because like the society, everyone is so negative, even people that are like good friends of mine, just like politics, whatever it is, there's a lot of negativity out there. Whereas I've always been an optimist. I think there's massive opportunities, particularly in healthcare as well. Like, what's your perception as to where we're at with that, the thought of where healthcare is going, but also about life in general? Because I know we're touching on a variety of things here.
You're right. I think there's a lot that's happening in the world, and people have very strong views on, it's very emotive, a lot of the things that are happening across the world now, and the disparity in the world in terms of, there's never been as many millionaires and billionaires in the world, but the rate of poverty is still huge. Even in this country, homelessness and poverty, and it just shouldn't be happening. And it shouldn't be happening in this country, and it shouldn't be happening in the world. There's enough wealth. I mean, I read something about Elon Musk, he's the first trillionaire. He has more money than like some countries have. It's just madness. And how can that happen when there are some places in the world where people don't have fresh running water? So that, think at a base level, I think there's big questions to be asked there in terms of why are more people becoming more wealthy, but more people are becoming more poor. I think, from a healthcare perspective, it doesn't help the fact that we just have successive governments that have very short time periods where they change, leadership changes. What are we on, our 10th prime minister in the past, whatever it is, decade or something, and that's difficult to create any real sustained growth. And the NHS, I'm a really passionate believer in the NHS and helping the public, and I know a lot of sports doctors. There are very few who work a lot in the NHS. A lot work in sport, a lot work in private practice, which is great, but the general public also need our expertise and things, but it's a very difficult place to work, and the NHS is probably the only like business or any kind of enterprise setup where it's just constantly had people change its direction, its funding. I think it's impossible to have a healthcare sector to work properly when it's just changed so much. I think that's a big part of it. And I do feel really sorry for patients. I think where I sit in the journey of a patient's kind of, where I sit in their journey, they've often seen a lot more clinicians before they come to see someone like me. So often they've been waiting a long time, they're in a lot of pain, they're frustrated, and understandably so. I mean, I saw on, I don't know what, I think it was on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, I saw someone kind of complaining about their journey. They had an ACL tear, I think it was about 18 months ago, and then 3 months to get an MRI scan, and then was referred for surgery. And one of the things they mentioned, which really like hit a nerve for me and I empathised with, was that after waiting, with a deficient knee, and I think she was a gardener or something, and struggling to work, and all the things that happen in there, she went for a pre-hospital pre-assessment check the day before the surgery, and then she didn't say what it was, but I'm assuming it was MRSA or some sort of swab that's grown something, and she needed treatment. And they said the treatment is 5 days, and her surgery was the next day. And because of the timing issue, she couldn't have the surgery because she had to have a 5-day course, which meant her surgery is now, she's back on a waiting list. And I was like, why would somebody not think, if you're going to do a swab that needs 5-day treatment, if it's positive, do it 7 days before. Like, there's things like that which just, I think, is just infuriating. In that, and that's me, and it's not my life, but I work in that system. So, I mean, that's a negative slant, but on a positive slant, there are lots of organisations and lots of parts of the NHS that are doing good work, I think, and there are organisations that work within the NHS that are actually doing, are open to innovation and making pathways as streamlined as possible and embracing tech and things. So I think there are pockets of good.